Is that what happened? I didn't get a pass. My name wasn't included in the where you sent them. Turn us into one. He texted me. I checked his email and I didn't get one. Is it not working? So I can unplug it. This is working. Yes. Oh, that's working. Yeah, okay, yeah. I'll just leave that extended. Sonia, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. How are you?
Good. How are y'all?
Good, good. All right, I've got 5 o'clock, so I'm going to call this work session Enterprise City Council for August 3rd, 2021 to order. Let the record show that we've got 4 members physically present. We've got Councilwoman Rich, who is joining us electronically. So, guys, we'll get going down the work session agenda here. You should have an updated one. We added the third item there, the business license ordinance update. But so fire chief next steps, just so everybody's on the same page where we are on fire chief. So we did our resume review first round. We ranked all the resumes, narrowed it down to 4 semifinalists. Then we had a round of phone interviews. We paired up 2 by 2. And those I was with Sonia. Who were y'all with? Greg and Eugene. Then Scotty was with the mayor and Jonathan. So we had we interviewed the candidates for that. We've since had one person withdraw their name after the phone interviews. Everybody went through and ranked their top, independently ranked all their top. So we're here to talk about our next steps. We after ranking, we had 7 people doing the scoring. That was 5 council members, Jonathan and the mayor. So we narrowed those down, or we didn't narrow them down. We ranked them 1 through 4, and I will say every single ballot was exactly the same. So we had unanimous agreement on every single ballot. So we've got to decide how we want to move forward. I'm gonna make a recommendation that we move forward with a final interview of the top candidate. So on in the next couple of weeks, obviously, we couldn't do that this week because Sonia could not meet in person. But so is everybody okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I say, everybody independently, everybody came to the same conclusion that on the top candidate. So is everybody okay doing a final interview of that? The other alternative would be to narrow it down to 2. That would require plane flights, all that. So my recommendation is going to be to interview the top candidate, who's Chris Davis, our current interim.
I agree with you 100%.
Greg, you okay with it?
I agree 100% too.
Okay. So, Sonia?
Yes.
Are you in agreement with me?
Yes, I'm in agreement.
Okay. So we'll move forward with that. I'll work with Jonathan, the mayor, and Mr. Davis to get that interview scheduled, and we'll move forward with that. So next step, our next item on the agenda is the business license ordinance update. So everybody had some homework to do on that, review those, get feedback back to staff. What I discussed with Jonathan was as long as everybody was in agreement to move forward with a draft ordinance to introduce at the next council meeting. That would give us 3 weeks of review of because there's 5 Tuesdays this month. So if we introduce it in 2 weeks, the earliest we could take it up for a vote. We don't have to take it up for a vote. But the earliest we would take it up for a vote would be the first meeting in September, which is 5 weeks from today. Is everybody comfortable with that timeline?
I am.
Sonia,
That's
you
good.
Staff
That's good for me.
Staff comfortable with that timeline?
Yes.
Leanne's going to be out of town that week, but that won't prevent whether or not you can vote on it, obviously. So
The first Tuesday in September, you're saying?
correct.
Okay.
So we can have it staffed appropriately, have the draft to you by the next council meeting for sure, because we've only had very little input, or modifications to that. We can clean that up and get it to you by the next council meeting, and then introduce that. And then if you want to vote on it, at your purview. But Leanne will not be here to physically answer questions, but that shouldn't impact anything.
Right. So obviously, like I said, that just starts the clock. We don't have to, if there's still questions, still issues at that first meeting, nothing prevents us from laying it over.
Correct.
So, okay. All right. Next item is tonight's meeting's agenda review. So everybody should have their packet. Beverly, the only change was the addition of accounts payable B. So the packets y'all got on Friday should be accurate with that one change of the addition of accounts payable B. So I'll just run through this. Y'all stop me if I'm going too fast. So consent agenda, it's just our regular minutes approval, accounts payable approval. Then we'll have privilege of the floor. Then we'll have any staff reports that may come up. That's an item that I asked Beverly to add. Just seemed like that was repetitively coming up. So that just gives us a kind of a placeholder. Some nights we won't use it, but many nights we might if we. So if there's any time that y'all want to call on a member of the staff, that would be the appropriate time. All right. I'll introduce, or we'll have a public hearing for the Duracast rezone. Anything we need to know about that, Jonathan, Stacy, Barry? Okay. All right, so we'll have that hearing. Then at the close of that hearing, we'll consider the ordinance. Then we will move into new business. So we got the CDBG Community Enhancement Fund Assistance, which this is really just a continuation of what we've been doing for years, right? All right, any questions on this? Do we have the properties identified, I assume? So,
Stacy, is it here?
Stacy's not here. I believe we have the properties identified. Obviously, we have to have that in order to apply for the grant, and how we worked up with the dollar figure. Really, this is not just to pursue it, but also obligate the city if we were to win the grant, the 20% match, $39,000 as well.
right, which is the next item.
Correct.
Yeah. So we basically we apply for the grant, get the money, then the money just goes as far as it'll go based on the bids we get back. All right. So then the next item will be to authorize the mayor to execute agreements. These are the sewer projects along Freedom Drive that we've discussed in work sessions in the past. So this is actually coincides with the budget amendment we made several weeks back.
Correct. You did a budget amendment in March and moved sewer funds for the extent of $200,000 into the sewer account from the general fund to help out with these. The reason being is our staff has a lot going on, and Shannon didn't have the labor to go in and install some of these sewer hookups for some of our expanding businesses or projects. Those include, automotive dealerships, commercial apartments, retail development downtown. Those are the three areas we talked about that coincided with your economic development policies. All three of those businesses were under, the work that needed to be done. We were able to contract it out for under the $50,000 amount for bid. So instead of doing it in-house, we're just contracting that out to get the sewer work done.
All right, and then also an agreement related to the soccer complex development with the community college, which will approve cooperative efforts between the college and city. So obviously we've been talking about this for a long time. So what exactly?
So there's approximately 25 acres that the community college system would deed to the city, provided that we move forward within 2 years with the soccer. Okay, sorry. So provided that we move forward with the agreement with the community college system, basically states that we have 2 years to move forward with plans to produce soccer fields, some sort of restroom facilities and other improvements out there on that 25 acres that the community college would deed to the city. So we have 2 years to execute that. They are meeting. They had their July board meeting already and tentatively kind of gave a thumbs up on that. They will formally vote on that in August. This agreement would allow, or this authorization would give the mayor permission to execute that document once the community college system approves the agreement to deed the property to the city.
There's no reason to believe they're not going to approve that, right?
Not at this time.
Does anybody have any questions about the sewer projects or the soccer deal with the junior college? All right, the next item, is Chief Davis in the room?
He's in the back. There he
Chief
is.
Davis, anything we need to know about this ARF services agreement with Arista? I think we're just renewing an existing agreement in place.
That's right. Yeah, there's no changes. The only difference in the document itself is the contact information.
So they just updated some contact information.
That's right.
This is something that obviously Arista operates out of the airport. We just have to have this agreement in place.
That's correct. That's for their federal contracts. They have to have NAS 3306. This is part of that agreement.
Gotcha. So this just keeps them compliant and allows.
Yes, it keeps us compliant to keep them compliant.
Gotcha.
It's the rabbit hole.
All right. Any questions of Chief Davis on this agreement? All right. Thank you, Chief Davis. All right. Authorize advertisement of bids. So we're going to call for consideration request from consulting engineer Glenn Morgan to authorize the advertisement of bids for Highway 167 sewer utility relocation project subject to ALDOT concurrence. This is for the 5 lining of 167, correct?
It'll go about a quarter mile past it.
Yeah. So obviously we've got utilities. The city has utilities that we've got to relocate. There's other utilities that have to be relocated, but this is authorizing us to go out to bid for that project. So. You did. Does anybody have any questions? All right, then the next item is some public works vehicles, an F-350, an F-150, and 2 recycle compactors. Looks like because of some issues with procuring budgeted equipment. Yeah, just go ahead and explain it to us, Barry.
Yes, sir. So the knuckle boom that we had budgeted for this year, we're finding is 18 months to 24 months out for us to be able to get that piece of equipment. So if we move forward now and order that piece of equipment, we're going to encumber the funds and don't even know if we're going to get it 2 years from now. So we have other needs that we would like to repurpose that money that I would put in next year's budget. So I'm just shifting some stuff around. And I'm reducing the budget. The line item is cheaper than what we had budgeted for the knuckle boom that's there. So I'm just asking to shift some stuff around, and then I'm going to re-ask for that same knuckle boom next year, and let's just see how it looks next year, next year's budget.
Okay. So budget No, it's beneficial to the budget actually, so, but these are budgeted funds, we're just redirecting.
Yes, sir. And actually reducing that budget amount.
Anybody got any questions of Barry
Mm-mm.
on that? Thank you, Barry.
Thank you.
All right, then we got a couple of ABC license requests that we'll simply introduce tonight. That's with Bridges at Tartan Pines and the Carniceria LLC. And then we will go into, which, like I said, we won't take any action on those. Those will be laid over until next meeting. Then we have mayor's report, council members' comments. So is there anything that y'all want to add to the agenda? Sonia, you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and I don't have any additional.
All right. So you got any questions about what we discussed?
No.
All right. Well, we're a little ahead of schedule. We do have a. Is there anything we need to discuss from staff or from the council, or we want to move forward with our next item?
Thank you, President. You were emailed a copy of the study from the consultant for the indoor pool at the college. This was finished up late last night, addressing my final comments. But in short, this report basically says that the structure of the pool at the college is in good shape. There's some things that we need to address as far as rebar, structural concrete, but they made a recommendation that the initial report that was done in 2016 still stands as a good recommendation to line that pool. And they basically came up with an estimate, not just for the liner, but of the equipment, the filters, the pumps, the heaters, the whole 9 yards for the pool to get it back as a functioning pool. The number was with contingency like 1.1 million on that, which is under our estimate. Our estimate was about 1.5. So my recommendation is if the council wants to move forward with an indoor pool, the study shows, the engineer said that structurally that system is in good enough shape to rehab, to bring it back, and this will be a fraction of the cost of building a new indoor pool anywhere else, because the structure itself, the building itself is already there and in place.
One thing that wasn't addressed in there, so I assume it's in good shape, are the mechanicals of the building, the HVAC of the building, so all adequate. Of course, I assume that's all in with the gymnasium.
So that's one thing I did not ask him to dig into, was the actual mechanical of the structure itself. I figured that's something we would talk to and refine as whose responsibilities are for dehumidification and HVAC for the structure itself. I was just looking at the pool structure, the walls, the liner system, and the pumps and the filters to make sure that could be rehabbed.
Right.
The pool had been dried and abandoned for about 10 years or longer. So.
But that budget had some money in there for the pool deck, for the bleachers, for all that
It
stuff.
did. It had all the surfaces as far as all the walking surfaces, the gutter system to collect it back, the bleachers, underneath all the piping. There was some piping changes that had to be done, as well as, like I said, the heaters and the filters and all the stuff that goes with it.
If y'all hadn't had a chance to review this very thorough report, I actually took some time today to review that. So just a refresher, this was not a walkthrough. This was an actual in-depth study conducted by structural engineers and pool professionals.
So 2016, McKee and Associates did an initial study and tried to determine that a lining system was the right way to go for that pool, but they didn't address the structure to make sure that structurally it was a good structure to build upon. So my recommendation was to spend a little bit of money during the design process, and let's make sure that the pool itself, the concrete, the rebar was in good shape. So they brought in a structural engineer, along with a utility engineer and another pool consultant that does the filters and that kind of stuff. So there was actually 3 consultants working together on a team to produce this report. I thought it was very thorough. I thought they did a great job with it. But my recommendation, if you want to go for with the pool, this is a good solution for an indoor facility. for that budget. If you want to, we'll just need to give me direction to work up a contract with a consultant to finish a set of design plans that we would go out to bid.
And
So-
do we have an agreement with the junior college as far as what they're gonna maintain and what the city's gonna have to maintain?
That'll be part of the agreement as well. Just talking to Jonathan about making sure that it's very clear about whose responsibilities is what as far as maintaining, but also staffing and O&M costs for this facility as
Well,
well.
like you were talking about the air conditioning, the building itself a few minutes ago.
Ingress and
We need to
egress,
clarify
have
all
those
that.
discussions as well about support facilities for the pool as far as changing rooms and restrooms and all that stuff needs to be coordinated with the college as well.
Yeah, because they were talking about the locker rooms, redoing those with the 2 doors
That's correct.
right on the side. Okay.
This report is just for getting the pool back as a functioning pool, not the facility supports and all the stuff that goes with it.
Yeah, so it's actually a good tee up for our work session after the meeting tonight. We'll be talking about council priorities, trying to kind of rack and stack our priorities. Obviously, we had high-level conversation back in November, December, if y'all remember. So it's time to revisit that now that we've actually got real money to spend and real projects. So it's good that we got that update tonight because we'll be talking about that later, right, John?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any questions? You good on that, Sonia? You hear everything?
I think I did. I think what Barry saying that this report is just to assess just the condition of the pool and not any other parts of the building, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay. I got it.
All right. Is that all you got?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thanks, Barry. We're still about 5 minutes ahead of schedule. We ready to move forward with anything else? Okay. All right. So if nobody has anything else, we'll move on to our to an executive session to discuss legal issues and some good name and character issues. Anything else? Okay. All right. So we expect this will be going approximately 30 minutes. We do not expect to address anything else in the work session. So we'll probably come back, have a brief recess before our regular meeting at 6 o'clock. And then we will reconvene in work session after our regular meeting for our initial budget discussions. So I will entertain a motion to go into executive session
So
concerning
moved.
legal issues.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
that we're gonna need to put this amount, but just in case. I know you're not big enough to find leverage, but just in case you need to fill this amount, just in case they make. We just haven't had that happen with a retiree, with, cause you're on target. That's, the retiree's husband was having issues with prescription. So he had to come in and do the same.
Yeah, my only concern now is if we cancel my appointment that I had back in like December, January, the lady said, I don't know if you'll go back and cover it. So.
It will cover everything until the end of this month. Like, you'll be covered on our insurance until 8/30.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
I've reached out to those two consultants. Some proposal, a contract that I can sign. Oh, I'm sorry. So I told Matt at the end of the week. Something like that. But they did give me a agreement that we can execute. It was approved, we can get it validated. Martin was ready. Accepted.
Little taste of that and a big taste of that.
right, I'm gonna recess our work session. It's at 5:58. We're gonna take a brief break for a couple minutes, then we'll come back into our regular session. We'll continue our work session after the conclusion of our regular meeting and to discuss our fiscal year 22 budget. Y'all got a couple minutes. Mayor, you giving the prayer? Did you know you were giving the prayer tonight? Rainer. Is she officially present? No. Okay, I didn't think so. Sonia, can you hear us?
Oh, yeah.
From St. John's, amen.
Yes, sir.
All right, I've got 6 o'clock. I'm going to call this August 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Enterprise City Council to order. Let the record show that we have all present except for Councilwoman Sonia Rich, who actually is joining us electronically, but she's officially not present. So please stand and join me in the opening prayer and pledge of allegiance. We have Reverend Willie White from John's Chapel AME to give us the prayer.
Let us pray. Most gracious, eternal Heavenly Father, we thank you, the Lord, for this glorious day. We thank you, the Lord, for your hands protection being upon us. Now, God, as we come, the Lord, together as a team, we come, God, praying the Lord that thou will continue to lead us and guide us. Bless our city in a very special way. Bless our leaders in a very special way. We claim the victory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Council, you should have a copy of the agenda which we reviewed in our work session prior to this meeting. I will call for a motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now consider the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the council for review, are considered to be routine, and will be enacted by one motion of the city council with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request of a member of the city council. I will now call for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Beverly, let the record show I'll be abstaining because of a conflict with accounts payable B. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will now have privilege of the floor, which allows anybody who's present here tonight to address the council for 3 minutes on any topic they wish to discuss. Is there anybody here that wishes to address the council? All right. Is there going to be anybody else after her? All right, if you could come forward and tell us your name and what you want to address us about.
My name is Peggy Contreras, and I'm here in reference to Executive Order 13985, signed by President Biden. This is an equity for our underserved and under-resourced communities, basically our Black and brown communities. It's about recognizing and working together to address these inadequacies, in our policies and our programs, and to serve those barriers that serve to keep us divided. It's about funds set aside to address and assist in these issues. These funds are provided at the federal level, and they are provided down through the states and local governments. And I'm not sure if you've heard of it or not, but I do have a copy for the council. And you can also Google a copy and download it, but it's Executive Order 13985. And also it has 12 focus areas that it covers: food and insecurities, employment assistance, mental health services, child care and youth services, education support, rental and utility assistance, mortgage assistance, economic development, public health, transportation, PPE and cleaning supplies, and healthcare services. So we know that there was funds received, for this, and we just ask that these funds be set aside to help build our Black community, and we'll come back with a plan at a later date. I just thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Contreras. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the council? All right, seeing none, we'll move on with our agenda. All right. Are there any staff reports? I think we covered everything in our work session. So moving on to old business, we have a public hearing and consideration of ordinance 070621, which is the Duracast Incorporated rezone. I will now call for a public hearing prior to consideration of ordinance 070621, providing for the rezone of 8.92 acres of land owned by Duracast Incorporated from M2 General Manufacturing District to B3 Highway Commercial District, located at 101 North Industrial Park Road. All right, the hearing is now open. Is there anybody here that wishes to speak for or against this ordinance? Does not look like anybody's here, so I'll now close the hearing, and I will entertain a motion to consider ordinance 070621. So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 070621. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving to new business, we will now review and consider resolution 080321, which is the intent to apply for 2021 CDBG Community Enhancement Fund Assistance. I will now introduce and call for consideration of resolution 080321, providing for notice of the city's intent to apply for FY 2021 Community Development Block Grant Community Enhancement Fund Assistance for costs associated with the proposed demolition and clearance of abandoned, vacant public nuisance properties. The resolution further authorizes the mayor to sign any and all necessary application papers, as well as any contracts or agreements relative to the project. The total grant funds applied for is $272,900. I'll now entertain a motion to adopt this resolution.
So move.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We discussed this in the work session prior, so is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will now review and consider resolution 080321-A to authorize the local match of 2021 CDBG and Community Enhancement Fund. I will now introduce and call for consideration of resolution 080321-A, providing for notice of the city's commitment to the FY 2021 CDBG Community Enhancement Fund of $39,000 in matching funds. Grant funds of $272,900 will be utilized for the proposed demolition and clearance of abandoned, vacant public nuisance properties for a total project outlay of $311,900. I'll now entertain a motion to adopt this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now authorize the mayor to execute certain agreements. So I'll call for a motion to authorize the mayor to execute agreements with property owners and/or contractors associated with sewer work along Freedom Drive and the bypass. These agreements and work coincide with budget approvals which the council has previously approved related to installation of sewer lines and sewer work in these areas. Also, an agreement related to soccer complex development with the community college which will approve cooperative efforts between the college and city related to the development of a soccer complex along George Wallace Drive. Now, entertain this motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the mayor to execute these agreements. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now call for a motion to authorize the interim fire chief to execute a memorandum of agreement with Arista Aviation Services LLC for aircraft rescue and firefighting emergency services at Enterprise Municipal Airport. The agreement, which lays out the procedures in the event of potential or actual emergency on or near the hangar operations of Arista Aviation, has been reviewed by the mayor and city attorney, who agree with the contents of the memorandum. Do I hear a motion to authorize the memorandum of agreement?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the memorandum of agreement. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will now introduce and call for consideration of a request from consulting engineer Glenn Morgan to authorize the advertisement of bids for the Highway 167 North Sewer Utility Relocation Project, subject to ALDOT concurrence. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to authorize the advertisement of bids for the 167 Sewer Utility Relocation Project. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now request permission to seek bids for vehicles and equipment from the sanitation department, as discussed earlier. So I'll introduce and call for consideration of a request from City Engineer, Public Works Director Barry Mott to seek bids for the purchase of the following vehicles and equipment. 1 Ford F-350 work truck with work body. 1 Ford F-150 work truck. 2 recycle compactors. A 2021 Sanitation Department budgeted line item for a knuckle boom truck at $175,000 will be deleted from the 2021 budget due to an 18-month equipment delivery schedule. This knuckle boom truck will be requested for the 2022 budget and will cover the cost of these additional items. Do I hear a motion to approve this request?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll now introduce some ABC license requests, the first being the Bridges at Tartan Pines LLC. I introduce a request from the Bridges at Tartan Pines LLC, DBA The Bridges at Tartan Pines, for a special retail, which is more than 30 days, license located at 423 Tartan Way. I will call for a public hearing to be held at the regular meeting scheduled for August 17, 2021, prior to consideration of the request. There will be no action taken tonight. I also introduce a request from Carniceria LLC, DBA Carniceria Special Meats and Grocery, for a retail beer, off-premise only, and retail wine, off-premise only, license located at 5 North Point Parkway, Suite H. I call for a public hearing to be held at the regular meeting scheduled for August 17, 2021, prior to consideration of this request. Again, there will be no action taken tonight on this. We'll now move to the Mayor's Report. Mayor Cooper.
Mayor's Report, Park and Recreation. All-Star Play Update. 7 under Rookie Youth Baseball All-Star Team. District Champs, State Champs, World Series. This goes to show that we will boys, and we will recognize them as our next council meeting won the World Series. Also, girls volleyball league, 99 participants, 3rd through 6th grade. to begin in September. Taco Football League, 130 participants, ages 7 through 12. Season to begin in September. Tournament and events, July 23rd, 24th. ISO League Basketball Tournament, 16. Projects. Playground equipment at Westside Park is about 80% complete. We're working on developing a disc golf course, Johnny Hilson Park. Our plans are to complete it sometime this fall. Engineering Department, Mitch Food, Single Family Detachment, 16, $3,393,000. Residential Addition, 21, $733,462. Commercial Addition, $663,300. Nuisance Properties, Investigative Properties, 62. Verbal Contact, 11. Email 2. Notifications mail, 48. Properties without progress, 30. Properties litigated, 25. In progress, 7. Fire Department had added a unrecorded hydrant beside city in the circle to be painted. Of course, the next issue of this will be the fire hydrants outside of the city limits to be repainted. Water Department, there were 21 new construction water meter services installed in the month of July. The Don Smith Company is about 40% complete of well 4A. The drilling of the Highway 167 North well 6A is complete. The well should be completed and online by late August or September. Miscellaneous, I would like to encourage all our citizens, not only in Enterprise, but the entire wide branch, to get the coveted vaccinations. Together, we can stop this curve. As you know, we've had an influence of sickness among our staff, and we are trying to make sure that the city services are completed on a daily basis. And in order to get this done, we are asking for our workers to be safe, and those of you who have not had your shots, and we are encouraging you to do so. Again, we will thank those people for coming out tonight, and especially I see Boy Scout, which is good. We have it. Again, we'd like to ask you to stand, and again, thank you for coming.
Sonia, even though you're not officially here, you got anything to say?
Just hello, everybody. Sorry I couldn't be there this evening. I wish that I could. Just thank you all for your thoughtfulness past couple of days. And thank you, Ms. Contreras. She, in her remarks, she spoke about, I think it's called Executive Order 13985 or something like that.
That's correct.
But what that is, 13985, and this was something that the president signed on January 20th of this year. And I think I wrote down, I was looking through my notes here, the official title is Advancing Racial Equity and Support for Underserved Communities through the Federal Government. So these are funds that are allocated for some of our programs in our underserved communities. And I know that Ms. Contreras is working with a group of people concerning that. So I appreciate her efforts, and thank everyone for coming tonight.
Mr. Goolsby?
Well, as the mayor said, you know, there's been a lot of increase in the COVID cases. It puts a strain on our department heads and our employees. So we ask the public to be patient with us. We'll try to get all the services done, but we ask for your prayers. Thank everybody for coming.
Mr. Padgett?
Thank everybody for coming tonight. I know everybody's been a little shorthanded around here with all the COVID outages, and thanks to all the department heads for all the hard work you've been doing to try to make up slack that's been happening, and just pray that all of this starts going back the right direction.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you for everyone coming tonight. And yes, be patient out there for all our businesses and for our city workers. They're trying. The other day I was at a business, and I'll tell you, they gave 100% and better to every customer that came in, and they were short-handed, just two people. It was a restaurant, and I didn't mind waiting 30-something minutes. So, again, please be patient with everybody out there in businesses and with our city department. Ms. Contreras, thank you. You gave me some homework to do. I appreciate that, and definitely I heard about it, but I haven't read it yet, and I definitely will do that. And again, thank you, department heads, and all our folks out there. And thank you to all the folks that are online viewing us through YouTube, being part of your civic center here. So,
All right, yeah,
Turner?
thank you. Ditto what everybody said, Sonia. Glad you're feeling well. And thank you, Ms. Contreras, for visiting us tonight and seeking to teach us. I, like Scotty, have some homework to do myself. So thank you for enlightening us on that. And thank everybody for coming. And feel free to stick around. We're going to adjourn our regular meeting. We'll reconvene in our work session to talk about fun stuff like the fiscal year 2022 budget. So stick around and listen to us talk about that if you wish. So this meeting is adjourned, and our work session will reconvene. It'll take about 5 minutes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That sounds easy.
School will be at 7 o'clock. Thank you, Mayor.
And then I do a lot of the things before I leave. I'm not letting myself hung up. If I forget to send you something, you call me. I think what I did.
I sent Turner a text this morning. I said, why didn't we receive our packet Friday like normal? He said, well, I did. I said, well, please forward it to
I
me.
think what I did, pulled up your Gmail account, and I went back and erased this, and I never went back and added you and considered it. So
Not a problem.
I'm gonna write down my phone number. And you can call me.
I'll put it in my phone.
I mess up again. I'm sure I will.
Yeah, well, I'll let you.
Turner, was there a copy of that thing that that lady passed around for everybody?
It's a good question. I was a little confused. I don't think there is. I think it's one copy.
Okay.
I guess I could scan it in.
Well, I guess we can Google it from that number she gave us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm sure if you Google it, it's that Executive Order 13985. If you read it,
Yeah.
or you can have it. Here, you take it. I assume without looking into it, that's in reference to Rescue Act funds. Some of the money that we got.
COVID.
It's probably an eligible expenditure.
You know, there's a big deal now about him extending the,
All right, Scotty, waiting on you. Oh, is that what it is? Well, then we better hurry. Yes, I guess I would be remiss if I didn't let everybody know that tonight is National Night Out with police departments, right, all over the country. So when you leave here, make sure you stop by and talk to our wonderful policemen. And we got a fireman back here too. All right, let's get this show on the road. Jonathan, Leanne, y'all want to get us kicked off? This is a special call work session regarding FY22 budget. So let's get this going.
Sure. Councilman, Councilwoman Rich, and Mayor Cooper, we appreciate you agreeing to this work session. Really, I think you've gotten a few emails, mainly from Leanne, that talk about general broad operational budget numbers that our staff kind of compile. Leanne took the time to meet with all the department heads, got that information in. Hopefully it's timely at this point, and we can work towards, getting a budget done in a timely manner this year going into FY22.
Yeah, and just so everybody's on the same page, October 1 is our fiscal year start.
So with that operational budget that you were sent, I'm going to let Leanne kind of talk about that. But also in that general broad framework, there's a lot of things and moving parts that the city has going on right now. We just did some bond issuances of approximately $56 million that we have to do capital improvements or new projects throughout the city. $3.3 million roughly of Relief Act funds that were distributed into the city's account last month have been deposited, with the remaining roughly $2 million to be received next year. We have until December of 2024 to expend those funds in accordance with Treasury Department guidelines. So kind of just a general broad understanding from the council about, what should we do with that money? I thought we should begin a dialogue about that as well. And then we got roughly $2.4 million of funds that we received, notified you about at the last council meeting from the payoff of Arista Aviation's loan for that project. They paid that off early. And so while we won't be receiving the lease payment on that, we do have those funds in an account as well. And then one thing that we haven't done in several years, we don't account for capital projects, road resurfacing, and then when our 2 half-cent sales tax increases that happened several years ago, those are roughly 5 years apart. I think in 2029 and 2024. 2034, excuse me. Correct. That those funds will switch over to 30% of that revenue going to the school system under the current agreement with the city and Enterprise City Schools. So in preparation of that, in today's dollars, that's roughly in aggregate $1.7 million that we currently receive in today's dollars that will be stripped out of our budget in basically $850,000 increments 5 years apart. So how do we build, a reserve that we don't have? I don't know if we're thinking that far ahead or not, but in order to get there, we're going to have to start saving some money and put that aside so that we don't have an $850,000 hole in our budget in 2029, and then wonder how we're going to make up that loss of revenue. Additionally, we have a pay plan and pay study that are outstanding that you're all aware of. We have some recommendations that I believe you also have maybe in your packets on different options that are out there. So some general guidelines about how the council would like us to see that. Of course, we would have to afford it, and I think the recommendations that you have are things that we can afford. It just matters, which direction you want us to go in with that pay implementation. And then the capital projects, which capital projects out of that bond issuance that we did, assuming that they all came in budget, obviously we would do as many as we could. But if not, where's the cut line? What's the order of merit with those capital projects that we have out there, from indoor pools, soccer complexes, recreation centers, and sports complexes, paving projects, all those kind of things that are outstanding. What's the order, the rank and file of where we should cut? So with that kind of opens up the broad discussion. I'll let Leanne talk specifically about the information that you have in your packet.
Good evening. You guys, everybody should have gotten the budget information over the weekend, but you should also have it there in your packet. This is strictly operating budget information. So there are some capital assets and some capital purchases that are included in the budget for certain departments that were requesting equipment, and some larger items that they would like to purchase in the next fiscal year. But primarily this is strictly an operating budget for 2022. Just a couple of things to note is that these are rough initial preliminary numbers to get us started and to have a conversation here about a lot of the items that Jonathan mentioned, because in order for us to be able to finalize this budget, we need to have some direction or some final decisions on where the council would like to move with some of those items, so that they can be also factored into these budget numbers before our big, detailed, all-day budget meeting that I know everybody loves. So I know everybody's super excited about that one. But before we go, in line by line and go through everything in detail, I just wanted you guys to have some preliminary numbers, so you knew where we stood and what effect your decisions have on the items like the pay studies and things like that, on how that would affect our budget for next year. I do want to say that I was, let's call it, aggressively conservative when I was doing projections for revenues for the next year. We did have revenue numbers come in for July yesterday, and so I don't know if those were included, but the sales revenues for July were $2,398,906. So while that's a great number, it is down a little bit from what we've been seeing for the rest of the fiscal year. So we are still at a high number. We're still at a little over 16% increase on sales tax over the previous year. But moving forward, definitely not a percentage increase that I would expect to continue to see. And so on my budget numbers for revenues, I dialed that way back and put it back more towards a 2.6 to a 3% increase, which is what historically the city has seen in prior years.
Increase over budgeted numbers, right?
Well, actually, the budget numbers that you have in here are really at a 7% increase, because the projected is going to outweigh what our budget was for the year. So I tried to look at our actual numbers for this year, project out what we should be having for the rest of this year, and then budget with a 2.5 to 3% increase off of that for next year. So actually in the budget difference from year to year is really about a 7% increase. But I assure you that was still very conservative. And I would anticipate that we would probably be a little bit over that for next year.
Yep.
And then of course there are other items that council has discussed and we've brought, staff has brought to council concerning our business license ordinances and the revenue stream from that. So depending on how council chooses to move forward with those items, those items have not been included in this budget. So because there was no decision on that. And so if council chooses to make a decision on that, depending on the direction that council would like for us to go, that would also then affect these numbers.
All right, so how do we want to proceed, at least for tonight? I mean, what questions do you need answered? So,
I think specifically for me, and I know for a lot of our department heads, one of their biggest items is salaries.
Yeah.
And so I think really having a decision on how the council would like to act on the pay study, letting us know then what that decision is so that we can go back and rework those particular numbers and let the department heads then reassess their individual departments based on that information. I think that would be extremely important.
all right, so Jonathan, you want to get the dialogue started on that, on the pay study? Let's mark that off.
So obviously, one of the decisions that the administration made early on when I came on board was on the Tier 2 conversion. And what I heard out of that was that we're not going to do the Tier 2 conversion to Tier 1 retirement benefits, but we are going to address first responder pay. So principally, what we did on the pay study was strip out first responder pay so that we could use a scalpel, I believe was what maybe you, Turner,
Right.
had said. But so we tried to do that and gave a few options to you on that. So, you know, one was less aggressive, one was more aggressive. So, you know, taking that by itself, what would the council's preference be on you know, or I don't want to put you in a bad position if you're not ready to talk about that.
No, I mean, I think we need to talk about it. I mean, I think obviously we're trying to build a budget here, so let's to use Greg's term, rip the Band-Aid off, talk about it, and move forward.
So I think
we
I
had
think you maybe gave those back.
We
At
had
one
in our,
point. Let me have those. Do you have them in front of
I've
you?
got a copy.
Okay. Does everyone have one?
Does everybody have a copy of the?
Okay. Yeah.
So, you've kind of thrown is everybody looking at the same thing I am?
Mhm.
So you've thrown out, you know, just talking about first responder here, an option of raising, that we, you know, it's kind of in line with what we've talked about in previous meetings, was to raise the police 4, raise fire 3, and then all other departments, these are
Under a C modified plan on the pay
C
study.
modified plan.
Correct. And it would also allow us to go, is it 18 steps on the, 18 steps, which would help us with, you know, merit increases and things like that to manage it and space out.
So they would go from low to high over a longer period of time.
Correct.
Yeah. So, you know, after, you know, talking with you about this stuff, you know, I think, you know, this bottom option is a good plan, starting it at the 6-month mark.
Correct. So the recommendation, you know, at least I think from Leanne's perspective and mine, is that we implement whatever decision you do on the pay study 6 months into the FY, so April of 22. And the reason for that is because we're in a pretty volatile situation even with COVID today. The increases that we've seen, that 16% increase in sales tax revenue, for instance, that's not sustainable. That's not realistic. I don't think we should budget 16% increases every year in revenue. So I think a conservative approach would be to implement that 6 months into the year so that we can continue to gauge the impact of COVID. And then, if our revenues are still holding strong, we'll feel even more confident that, what we're doing is right. If for some reason they retract, housing market slumps or whatever it is that's out there, it won't impact us all at once. And then we can adjust moving into FY23. So that would be the suggestion. I think the rationale behind it. Leanne, is that?
So under that plan, just to be clear, the total cost for FY23 would be in the $670,000 range. We'll get our police and our fire $4,000 and $3,000 respectively in increases, and then it would have also affect. There would be some increases in other departments also, as detailed out in that.
Correct. In the C modified pay study, and I think it would impact. If I'm not mistaken, it would impact every employee. Correct. Every employee.
Every employee.
Correct.
Yeah.
Individually, the increases may not be enormous, but because we're instituting a new pay scale, we have to place people then into categories that are most closely related to where they are now, which essentially is going to mean, even though some people's increase may be larger, others may be smaller, but it's to get them in their appropriate steps for the new pay scale. So it will end up being an overall increase for everyone, but that the half-year increase is what's included in the other departments that's on your list. It says all other departments. That's the Plan C modified for half the year. So that would be the increase for everyone else other than police and fire.
Does anybody have any questions? Scotty, you feel good about this?
Yes, I do.
Great.
It's time we need to do it.
Good. Eugene. Mm-hmm. Sonia, you got any questions or comments?
I don't. I can really barely hear, specific things I'm listening, but it's real muffled. It's hard to hear, so I'm gonna have to get some some direct info from Leanne and Jonathan. But I'm fine with.
Okay. Well, obviously, we're not making any decisions
I don't
tonight.
have any opposition really to anything major, so.
So
I'm gonna get off because, like I said, I can barely really understand. I can hear you all, but I just can't understand what the detail, the words you're saying.
Okay.
At the mic, anyway.
Well, we will bring you up to speed. We're not gonna make any decisions. We just gotta give staff something to plug in. So it sounds like we got consensus. Okay. We've got consensus around this bottom choice here, the C modified with those decisions, right? This down here.
Okay.
All right. So that answers our first question. All right, let's move forward then.
Okay. With respect to the Relief Act funds, no final guidance has been issued from Treasury yet, but we know that water and sewer projects, as well as lost revenue from anywhere that the city lost revenue from the year prior to COVID.
Which would be lodging, what else?
Well, basically lodging for the city of Enterprise. And so there's a formula, which is, not something that I have in my head, but it's a little complicated, but we can derive some number there that those monies can be directly applied to the general fund, as I understand it. But it will not cover in aggregate the total amount. It's pretty safe to say. So, with that, we do have, aging water lines throughout the city, and that's pretty safe play with that. Something the mayor and I had discussed a few weeks ago was looking at, if the water board had some needs in that area. So that may be one recommendation, to utilize some of those funds to address and expedite. So
do we know yet if if current ongoing existing projects qualify?
It's not clear to my knowledge, but I would tend to err that they do not. But basically anything that extends safe, clean drinking water or repairs, outdated infrastructure to provide safe drinking water would. And one of the reasons that this came up when the mayor and I were talking about it is we do have this ambitious road project ahead of us. And in order to accomplish that, it doesn't make a lot of sense to resurface $20 million in roads and then sometime over the next 4 years tear some of them up to replace water lines. So if we have this money, we could utilize this, and I don't know what that number is yet, because wanted to hear some feedback from the council if you wanted us to talk to the water board about it at our next meeting or in a meeting in the future, and start that conversation. But we can certainly get that number, but that would be a way that we could address, the water lines in conjunction with the road projects. As I understand it, Barry, the first 2 phases of the street resurfacing probably won't need any water line replacements. But after that, how many miles roughly will that cover? I'll let you talk.
I don't remember how far that takes us down the list, but it does get through. We took all of the failed roads and we did a high, medium, and low risk as far as utilities affecting those. So we took all the worst roads that were there and took the low risk, the ones that we didn't have to touch the utilities on, and that $3.5 million covered that list pretty easily. But to go to the next phase, so if we
and that's what we're working on now.
That's what we're working on now. So if we move to construction on those roads, in the next couple months, and it goes through that first $3.5 million, and we're ready for next year's projects, we need to be getting ahead right now on the utility and the stuff under the asphalt now, so that we're ready for the next phase of these road projects. Because we're looking at a $20 million project. So the last thing I'll do is have that road project done, and then we have to worry about water, sewer, any of these other utilities that are there. So that was our thought, was we've got the easy ones, the low-hanging fruit done, but we need to be prepared for that next round.
Yeah. Well, I think I speak for everybody. Whatever gets the roads paved, gets them, and obviously, if we've got this money to take care of water lines, let's get it done.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to, as you say, pave and tear up.
Yeah.
No. And that's what we've been waiting on the whole time.
Yeah, this first phase we've done in our water replacement lines, we're right along with the first phase of paving. We come behind them and resurface them. Now phase 2 of the resurfacing, those water lines have been replaced or are decent. But for phase 3 to happen, we got to do some more water lines.
That's right.
Which is not currently planned.
No, and is not in the the water department budget.
Yeah.
So
which should include the gas too, right?
We're looking at storm drainage, sewer, gas, and water for all those utilities. We're making sure it's comprehensive, anything that's below the asphalt. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, there's no guarantee. We think these are low risk roads, but you put asphalt down, and you just put that vibratory roller on it, and if there's a weak spot, we're going to find it. So there's no guarantee that we won't have to come back and patch it, but we're trying to do this as methodically as we can to reduce the risk that we don't come back and have to cut a road open. But anytime you do a major paving project like this, it's very common for you to pave the roads, and you're going to have some utilities that are going to fail just for putting that much asphalt trucks and that heavy equipment onto neighborhood roads that typically don't see that type of loading. We're going to have a couple, but
right.
we're trying to do it the right way.
Good. Does that answer your question on?
I think so. That's something we can take to, I guess, Councilman Goolsby as well. We can talk about that at the next water board meeting. See if that's something we can come to terms with.
Now, realistically, are we talking $5 million worth of water projects? Can we expend the money on water projects? Obviously, we don't want to do anything that we otherwise wouldn't need to do. We don't want to throw good money at bad projects. But
Correct.
if it's something that we're already going to do,
Yeah.
or is that stretching it? Or what's your?
I mean, based on some preliminary conversations I had with Alan, I know it's in the millions of dollars. I don't know, if we're talking 2 million, 4 million. And obviously some of that money, that 5.26 million, some of that probably maybe in the neighborhood of 600,000 or so, or could be with lodging.
But I mean, another thing you got to look at is, I mean, the water board's been working on this project for going on 5 years now. It seems like 4.5 years.
Right.
And it was a $10 million project, and y'all are going to be going for another while now, right? Just on this initial bond issue from 2015, 2016.
That initial bond issue, but that money is about used up, I think.
Yeah,
that's right.
But I'm just saying, it takes a long time to do a $10 million.
It don't happen overnight.
It takes a long time to do a $10 million project.
Right. And we've got till December of 24 to expend the funds.
Yeah, so you got 3 years.
Correct. And which is why we're trying to plan now to start things we know. We don't think Treasury is going to come back and say, well, safe drinking water is off the list.
No.
We feel pretty confident about that. There's other nuances within there that we could take a gamble on until we get that final guidance, but this is something we could start prepping for today.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'll get that number for you. I just didn't want to have that conversation with the water board unless it felt like the council, was open to that arrangement.
I mean, what better thing to spend it on than infrastructure than water? Yeah.
And just so you're aware, some of the conversations that the water board meetings that we've had, there's ground or lines in ground right now that are, some of them are 60 years older or older. Yeah, some of them are closer to 100.
Yeah, old infrastructure.
Correct.
Original infrastructure.
Correct.
Amazing it's still living.
With regard to the $2.4 million approximately that were deposited from the Arista payoff, one recommendation that the mayor and I had discussed, and again I discussed it with Leanne, was to take that money because of the loss of revenue from the rental income, the lease income on that property, would be to escrow that money into a reserve account. And now if that's not something, if you want us, obviously we can use that. We had Rayner check with legal counsel. We can use those funds unrestricted. But if it's in a reserve account, it's also unrestricted. You could use it at a later date. Twofold process with that to protect against the loss of lease payments, but also any overages that could occur through the projects that you have on your list. We would have an additional pot of money to pull from if something went over a certain amount of money, say like the pool or the rec center. If we budgeted X and it went to Y, you would have some money that you could potentially pull from as well.
Anybody opposed to sequestering that money into reserves? Okay.
With regard to accounting for capital projects, road resurfacing, and the school system, the thing that I want to tell you about all this is that it's not necessarily, particularly for the roads and the schools, it's not tomorrow. We're not going to need that tomorrow, and we certainly got some money to do capital projects with from the bond issuances. But over the next 10 years, we need to have somewhere around $1 million a year to continue to resurface roads, or else we're going to be faced with the continuing problem of every 5 to 10 years do a $30-40 million bond issuance to take care of whatever the problem is of the day. Again, with the school monies, I'm trying to look out that far so that whatever administration's in your seats at that point doesn't have an $850,000 hole in 29, and then another $850,000 hole in 34. And so, we believe that it's prudent to start having a bucket of money set aside in this budget year. I'm not sure what that bucket looks like. It certainly won't be $850,000 for the schools. It won't be $1 million for roads. It won't be $1 million for capital projects, but I believe it needs to be something. And so, as we go through that budget process, that's something that I wanted to bring to your attention to see if that's, something that you want us to start accounting for and how we account for that. Maybe have a discussion about that. Leanne, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so basically just in layman's terms of, we know we've got this expense coming in the future, or three separate expenses, one of them being roads. Obviously, we just borrowed a bunch of money to get our roads up to a certain line, but if we don't start budgeting every year for that, then we'll just be putting future councils in the same situation that past councils put us in this time. So we'll just be kicking that can down the road. But if we start planning for that now, then maybe in 10 years, we've got that money in our budget, we've got money set aside, and it's just part of, it's no shocker that, that we're going to be paving roads. We're going to be paving roads forever, so we might as well plan for it.
There's always going to be things that you never know when something happens or something comes up. You never know, and that's the same thing if you're budgeting for your home or in your business or your personal life. It's the same thing. You never know when something is just going to happen, but these are items that we know now specifically are definitely going to happen. Right. And so I think.
So why are you borrowing money?
It's better. It's better to be proactive than, like you said, kick the can down the road and we're in the same spot and we knew about it earlier, but we didn't plan for it. So I think it's always better to do that forecasting, look ahead, start taking action now to plan for those things then, because whether it's this council or another council, we would be doing a disservice to ourselves in the future to not go ahead and plan now. So
yeah. So I think it's really the three of y'all, Jonathan, Leanne, Barry. I think we just in the coming years start building this model of what's it going to take to run this city and keep us in good. Keep our infrastructure up to par instead of this constant cycle of, we got good stuff and then don't spend any money, then it's falling apart, then spend it, then you got a 60-year-old rec center, roads that were 100+ miles behind on. So yeah, I think everybody's on the same page, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
1968, right? And those seats in 1968. Same ones.
Yeah. So, right. I think it's music to our ears. I think.
Yeah. Plan for that rainy day.
Yeah. So obviously we're not going to get there in 1 year, but maybe this decade, just get closer and closer every year.
Finally, the discussion of the capital projects. Your preferences on rank ordering those, and I know City Hall renovations was not in that list that you initially had as well, but we have indoor or outdoor pool consideration, some kind of sports court / what we call a rec center, but it's really an indoor sports courts type facility, multi-purpose, ball fields or soccer complex, road resurfacing, veterans home project, which is sort of kind of baked into the cake.
Right.
So, of course, we have parking and other things that we've looked in and budgeted for some of those things as well. That I think, and sidewalks, those were the ones that, maybe the parking downtown and the City Hall renovations were not baked into the cake when we first started talking about this.
Yeah, so just to refresh, so I actually went back through my notes of our work sessions before Jonathan, Barry, and Leanne were on board, but it was one of our initial meetings. Our current top 5 ranking at that time was roads, a recreational pool, soccer complex, gym space, and sidewalks. Those were our, in order, those were our priorities. Now, there was no sense that, it had to be that order, but those, and then some of the other things we discussed were, city hall, police facilities, and other city facilities that needed renovations. Some of these, I'm just going to throw some things out there just because these were in my notes. But training facilities for first responders, I know we're working on some of that for fire now. Beautifying our gateways to the city, bike trails, that's part of the soccer complex plan. A special needs playground, that's in the long range plans of some things we've seen. Upgrade playgrounds and parks, that's something that Billy's always working on. A no-kill animal shelter, that's not something we talked a lot about, but it is something that keeps coming up. Downtown multi-use facility, I think that was in reference to our Main Street, our Chamber of Commerce, WEDC, those types of things. Parking and downtown beautification. So again, these were just things that came up in that work session. But you're right, our priorities were roads, rec pool, soccer, gymnasium, sidewalk projects, and then I think, renovation of city facilities kind of came right after that.
They did. I think one of the first work sessions afterwards, I think the council and Mayor Cooper, you all toured a little bit of City Hall, particularly where the police department, works on a day-to-day basis. And I think, I can at least speak for myself, but I think the feedback that I got was that that's maybe unacceptable for what we want our police officers working in on a day-to-day basis.
Is everybody on board with that? I think we do have consensus on that. It wasn't at the time of that meeting, but I don't think we had full context during that meeting. So it's definitely, I think, up there.
Okay. If we go over budget as these things go, do you have a sense of where, what projects are, no matter the cost, we want to do X, Y, or Z, or too early to tell that? Or
well, how do you want to do this? So, if we've got, so we'll just add police, not police, we'll just add City Hall. That's kind of, what we say, we're obviously including police in that.
Well,
So,
I'll give you an example. Material cost is obviously through the roof, and so with $56 million, we could do a lot of things. If we just focused on, say, a rec center, we could build a really nice one, maybe an indoor pool, a lot of stuff. We budgeted somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 million. Barry, is that right? 20 million? $20 million for a rec center. We think that for $20 million, of course, we're waiting. We just met with an architect on City Hall. We had an architect come in and talk about plans for that rec center and what we actually needed versus what was nice to have. And we're waiting on those cost estimates to come back. And so it may be premature. Maybe when we get those cost estimates, we can have a more, definitive discussion. But, if that $20 million number comes back at 25 or 30, it will impact how much we can spend in other places off of that bond issuance. So I'm just trying to get a feel kind of as we do this. Do you want us to collectively bring all those numbers back in, or as we get them in, just like we're doing with this parking lot downtown? Obviously that's a cost. It's not a significant cost in the grand scheme of things, but it's a cost. And if we go forward and we do
but
this,
we're moving forward with that.
Right.
So there's not a lot to talk about there.
right, but now we just got a pool report, and they're coming in as we get them in. We can't, we're going to get them in when the engineers and folks are able to do the work and provide it. So how do we proceed in that kind of uncertainty, with, these numbers keep rolling in? Do we just stick to a budget? We say, that's fine. We're just going to hammer home on the budget, and whatever the budget is, that's all we're going to do? Or is there some project that you say, no matter what the cost, we're in on that at the expense of whatever that is?
I would assume we've all probably got our pet projects, but Eugene, why don't you talk?
Well, back when we had the public involved, when the architect came and showed us the renderings of a new rec center and all, including a pool, etc. But we had the public there and got their opinions on what they needed most. And I think the thing, Billy, am I not correct? That it was soccer was number one. So thinking about what, meets the public's needs, we may need to continue to look at that soccer complex.
Of course, it's probably of the Parks and Rec heavy lifts, it's the most shovel ready, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So it's, just naturally going to kind of rise to the top.
Correct. We would be able to start on that,
quickly,
well before a lot of the other projects. Same with probably the community college pool versus, a new design build on a rec center. And at that point, once we start expending those monies, I just want to, Barry, you can back me up, but won't that kind of lock us into a budget at that point? I mean, we will have spent, millions of dollars once we address the soccer and potentially the pool. So the wiggle room gets less and less for the other projects.
Of course, there's a big variable is the roads also, because that's going to be taken down in chunks. You can't go spend $20 million on roads tomorrow if you wanted to, right?
That's correct. On the road projects that we're doing, we're looking somewhere like a $5 to $7 million chunk at a time. That's about what we can pave in a typical year with the paving contractors that we have here locally. So it's going to take us some time at that pace to get the roads done.
So to me, that's my priority is roads.
I think that's probably all our priorities, but I was thinking past the road paving.
Yeah, I think we agree roads is priority, and then obviously we want everything else. That we want to entertain a plan that gets us everything, but at some point, when it doesn't all fit in the box, I guess we're going to have to decide what. I mean, it's not like we have to say no. It just may have to wait. So, Greg, you haven't said anything. What's your feedback?
Well, I know, just thinking back pre-November when I was out beating the doors, the number one thing besides roads was probably the number one thing, but right after that I heard a lot about was rec center. So,
and what is it in your mind? What does that mean? I mean, what's a rec center?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I think that big plan that was done with the big open meetings and all of that has created a mindset in town that that's what people are going to get, which is, I think out of budget. But
I mean, at this point, we could probably spend all $56 million.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know that anything we do is going to meet the expectations there on that because of the.
Which means we've got to go more for the needs.
We got to go for the needs, and then we got to communicate the reasons for what we're doing because community has a spot out here that's probably not attainable anytime soon.
So as an example to what you're talking about, and certainly could spend all 56 million on what we initially drew up. And that was kind of the gold standard of, everything. We had an industrial kitchen in there. We've still got one at the Civic Center and one at the Farmers Market that the public can use. So that was one of the things that we took out. It also, I think today Billy has a need. How many? Do you have 411 people that kids that played basketball? And we have one gym. Mm-hmm. The plan that we drew up, the $50 million plan, added 2 additional gyms. No, two additional. 2 additional gyms, which got us to 3. If Billy could have all the gyms he could use right now, that number would be 4.
3 additional.
3 additional. 3 additional.
And that doesn't take us into the next generation. It just gets our heads above water.
Correct. So there were some, when you talk about the needs, the plan was great, had all the bells and whistles, except it didn't address the needs of the
Right.
community. And so that's one of the things that Barry has gone back with Billy and had some discussions with the architect about what are the needs and how can we still accomplish this without, the bells and whistles.
Well, absolutely. We got to focus on the needs because.
Right.
So I went back to the local architect that did the original study. There was a team of architects actually, but I went to the local architect and we looked at doing a modification, took some things out, added some things in. So we looked at a complex that had an outdoor pool there, and 4 additional courts that could be changed, but 4 courts.
Which would take us to 5.
Take us to 5 courts. We also looked at the possibility of doing a walking track. That is questionable because of the cost. The costs I saw were pretty high. So for right now, I took that off the table and we would provide outdoor walking inside there. But we, between the outdoor pool and the indoor facility, there was a multi-purpose rooms so that people that were using the outdoor swim could come in and have a function in that facility. So it could be a wet or dry type function. So we get the most bang for our buck and try to check as many of the boxes that what the people wanted and what we needed. That's how we came up with a number in that low $20 million number from using the existing architect and existing studies and modifying our numbers. And for right now, without any design being done, they think that $20 to $25 million number accomplishes what?
And it
what
would,
we're talking about.
this also, if correct me if I'm wrong, would fit into kind of a master plan that would give us some future projects like
That's correct.
Miracle Fields and things like that.
That's correct. So this would be to get the base structure of what we had to have with all the facilities, the parking and restrooms and that kind of stuff. You have to check the boxes on to make it functional. And then it had room for expansion to do some of the other things that we'd like to do down the road. But they're just some bare necessities that you had to have into the building. So that's where that $20 million, we try to say, is $20 million a decent number without doing any design? And that's where our thought is right now, that we can get very close to a $20 million.
I want to hear what Billy thinks that would do to his department program. I mean, obviously you were involved in some of this conversation Barry had. So, I mean, would that be a transformative project for Enterprise Parks and Rec?
Absolutely. I mean, just what Barry and Jonathan mentioned. I mean, the opportunities gives us so much more for individuals. I mean, we're limited to what we can do for adults. We're limited to what we can do if we're trying to get volleyball involved. Limited to what we can do for them. We're, just not enough space for our youth basketball of what we currently have. But just imagine if the growth continues, then we're prepared, so as much as we can, as best we can. And, and also there might be certain times with these additional gym space, we can use it for additional programming, other programming opportunities that we might not be meeting the need as what we're doing now. So the current rec center, as we all know, has served its purpose, has done a great job, but we're beyond what we can do with it. So anything, opportunities is very well. It'd be good for us, but yes, they were spot on with that. So I guess that answers y'all's question. Oh yeah, yes. Each year we've had an increase in youth volleyball. We didn't add any additional grades or ages. The same has always been 3rd through 6th grade, and 2 years ago I think we were around 60 participants. Last year we were at 80. Now we're close to 100. So,
and if you had the facilities,
those
right.
Gym facilities would now it could be volleyball.
That's right.
And you could actually hold more of those tournaments within our city, whether it's basketball, volleyball, indoor soccer,
correct,
whatever it might be. So
that's right.
Multi-use out of all those.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly.
That's right.
You'll fill those hotels and restaurants up more so.
That's correct. And then again, we'll be, adding the four gyms.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, we have the additional gym tying into it. That gives us 5 gyms to really work something out.
Did we talk about it all with partnership with the SEC with their gym? I don't remember if we did or not. I don't know if that would be on the table or not.
Well, I know that, you know,
'Cause I know they
Mr. Rogers is always open for us
Yeah.
to be able to bring, additional opportunities to his campus.
yeah, because he does the high school basketball
That's
games
correct.
over there
That's correct. So,
from the surrounding area.
Okay. Well, so I mean, it just sounds like, you know, that we're on the same page. I mean, obviously, I know we hadn't answered your question, but as far as what kind of, but I guess we need more information. We just need to, we need to see how much we can fit in the box.
Sure, and that's fair. I just, you know, as we go down this road, what I didn't want to get into is having us, you know, just like the pool tonight, you know, that's further along than all the other projects, and I just
But
want to make
it's
sure
also the smaller end of the scale.
that it is. But I just wanted to make you aware that if we, you know, as we say, do you want us to proceed with the pool, depending on the scope and cost, it could start restricting. So I'm fine, you know, with whatever it is that the council wants to do, but I didn't want you to come back to the staff, you know, 3 projects into it and then say, where's this, or why aren't we doing that, when you know we thought we were doing all these things. I can't control the market on what these things are going to cost. I wouldn't even guess. I can't even get a contractor to guess what some of these things are cost until we're further down the line. Right. But I do want to bring that to your attention so that we're not operating in some kind of bubble or we think every one of these things is a slam dunk. It's a very uncertain environment.
And see, that indoor pool meets that need. But Greg, you were talking about it. You know, the folks want a pool. So now that gives them that indoor pool, and then we work on the outdoor with the rest of the facilities. But
part of the reason why we're thinking now with additional gym is because if we had the opportunity to partner with the college,
yeah,
and there's our indoor pool, then that helps us with our cost to be able to add more gym space. And that was part of the reason why that discussion that we're having now for additional gym space. It's because of maybe hopefully the partnership that we can have with the college.
If we built an indoor pool with the complex that we were planning on at the old rec center, how does that cost compare to what we're looking at the junior college?
I mean, that's the budget buster, right?
So we're looking at the rec center, we're talking about an outdoor pool facility, and then we're using the college for the indoor pool facility, 2 completely different uses to check both of those boxes. If we want to do an indoor pool at the rec center, you're looking at a number that's 4 or 5 times what the number that I gave you tonight as far as a modification of the college pool.
The legacy
Plus,
cost.
And it's just the upfront cost is not the big number. The big number is staffing it and running those facilities. So if we could team with the college on some of that, it's a win-win for both of us. I was going to give you one other option. A way to lock in cost on projects like this is to go ahead and get the design done. You know, but it's a risky thing. If you say, hey, let's shoot for a $20 million budget and design the project and get it ready for bid, then you know what you're up against. But if for some reason we go down this path too far and we say, well, we don't have $20 million, we have $15 million, then you've got to go back and redesign that facility, and you can have some redesign costs. But
can it not be designed with alternates? Like obviously the pool is an alternate.
You can, but you really need a target number of what you're shooting for. And that's why I brought to you like the pool and some of these other things. It makes sense on some of these projects we don't have a good scope on to do a preliminary design. Let's spend a little bit of money and get it to a point where we know what those costs are. And one thing we could do for the rec center is say we could design the architect to a 30% set of drawings, and we could lock in kind of, if we want 4 courts, we want an outdoor pool, we want these things. Let's go ahead and get it to a schematic phase and do enough design work that they can give us a better cost estimate that we feel good about, and then maybe that's one way of skinning this cat.
Well, I think we've got the council's support to move forward with that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we don't want money just sit over there in a bank account for the next 5 years.
we've got to dive in sometime.
Yeah,
that's right.
The pool.
I would say give me 30 days to have these proposals where I can review them and feel good about it. So not next council, but 2 council meetings away, I could have these proposals to you, ready to move forward. My thought would be is to do these proposals so that we have a 30, 60, 90%. So if we get to 30% and the deliverables on 30%, we could stop if we decided we were going down the wrong path, and then we could back up. I don't want to go to 100% and then us look at it and go, wait a minute, that missed the boat. But if we could get these things all moving at the same time and we get kind of 30% on all of them, we feel good, then we'll know, hey, we're doing good on our budget. We still have surplus left, or hey, some of these projects are going to have to be scaled back. But that's one way that I would one answer, maybe not the best answer, but one answer is to get enough design done that we have a good number on all these projects that we mentioned tonight.
Okay. Sounds like a plan.
Yep.
That get you information you need on that. All right. What are our other bullet points?
That's all that I have, but if you have something else, Councilman, we'll address it.
So, to be clear, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items on my list. That's the 5 original: roads, rec pool, soccer, gymnasium facility, sidewalks. Where are we at on sidewalks?
Sidewalks is compared to the cost of the other projects, it's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
But you've already approved to move forward with a sidewalk project.
Yeah.
I purposely held back putting those plans on the street because part of the parking lot behind Yancey Parker, I have to add sidewalks to that project. So if we're going to do it per linear foot or square foot or whatever, it made sense for me just to bid it all at one time, and I could tackle 2 projects under one bidding. So that's the reason I said give me 30, 60 days before we put the sidewalk project on it. But you approved to move forward.
But
with
that project's off the shelf. So we've really got 6. So we've got roads, obviously. That's our big.
That's right.
And that's a perpetual project. Rec center pool, soccer facility, gymnasium facility, city hall / police department facilities, and our ESCC pool partnership.
Correct.
Sounds like we've got consensus support on those items, and we have the utmost confidence that our staff will get those all built by the end of next year.
Jonathan, are we still contemplating looking at some other buildings, renting or leasing for possibly the water department or the police department?
Yes, sir. And we talked about that, I think, briefly. May have been missed in the dialogue, but certainly there's 2 other buildings that we've at least explored. I don't know. Should I talk about them here? One of them, I think that you know about, downtown. I think somebody said it earlier, so I'll just say the Regions Bank building was one of the buildings that we had looked at, and we're still evaluating that. It's not off the table. And then there's another building similar to the fire department that we were looking at in that kind of old, car dealer type space that we might be able to repurpose. Each one of those present their own, challenges and opportunities. The Regions building, frankly, is a lease. I mean, that's really our only option on that makes financial sense. So that obviously increases our operational budget on an annual basis, but it does preserve capital from the bond issuance for other projects. The automobile dealer type building, the heated and cooled space is significantly smaller than what we need. As an example, the Regions building would be somewhere around 14,000 square feet. Car dealer might be 4,000 square feet or so in heated and cooled space. And so we'd be looking at doing some sort of an addition onto that. Even if we acquired it, we would have to make some pretty significant modifications to the facility. But those are still very much on the table as we explore those options. And the final one is renovating all of City Hall, both top and bottom floors. Of course, if we move police out to one of those other facilities or City Hall out, I think the consensus was maybe police out. We may not need to expend a lot of resources on the bottom floor and bring everything up on the first floor that the public interacts with, like our engineering department, and just remodel up here. And so that would have a much lower cost than doing all of City Hall. So those are kind of the balls we're juggling right now to figure out which is the best option. Certainly plan to present that to you.
Yeah, so that's just part of this mix of getting it all to fit inside of our budget, and also keeping in mind what it does to operating budgets moving forward, and giving us room to grow and all these things.
So we're currently under contract with an architect that's doing a preliminary layout for City Hall and one of the buildings that he mentioned already. So we'll have some options that'll come back to you shortly. I'm working with those to get those layouts, to come up with some alternative layouts and some costs for those two projects.
Yeah, I mean, so that, we can discuss anything we want to discuss. It's obviously our, budget meeting. So we got through Jonathan's list of items. I think we've given staff what they need to go back, plug in, bring us back a preliminary budget. What's the timeline looking like on that?
Okay, so my understanding would be that council would have to vote on the pay study. So to make a determination on how you would like for us to move forward with that, we would need a vote on that, which
Just
I
to
guess.
establish new classifications and all
Correct.
that.
And could that be, does it have to be introduced, or can it be done at the next?
No, that could be done
In one meeting, okay. So if council knows the direction that they would like to take on that, then that could be voted on at the next council meeting, and then we would be able to take that information, work with Christina, and get with the department heads so that they can update their budget numbers on that. The revenue projections would then just be affected depending on the direction council would like to take with the business ordinances and how we want to move forward with those. But I think primarily on the expense side, it's important to get the pay study determination. So.
Well, I think you've got your answer on that. Obviously, it's not codified yet, but
sure.
I think we know which direction we're going with it.
Yes, sir.
Our next step would be to look to have a budget, sit down with all the departments, have present to the council, as well as all appropriated funds for work right now to identify. I think we've got a pretty robust list of all the agencies, entities that are appropriating funds. So that could be the school system.
Library.
Yeah, so who all, refreshers on who all we appropriate funds.
School system, library,
Chamber of
WDC.
Commerce,
Wiregrass, Fulton County Arts Alliance. There's about 10 to 12 every year, depending on, I think there were 11 last year, something like that. So, and some of those range in like $3,000 to 30% of our of our sales taxes.
Right.
And they all have varying agreements, but every year, and I won't say that we don't do that every year or haven't, but it's certainly part of the budget process we would like to establish is to have those appropriations come before the council for review, talk about why they need the money, what they're doing with it, and make that request formally rather than just roll over and say this is what we're doing this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think we've lacked discipline in that. I mean, your time with WDC. I mean, we'd appropriate the money, then you'd come 3 months later and give your presentation and all that. So yeah, I think we definitely want to, drive some discipline into that. And even if it's the same presentation you gave last year, let's at least get in front of us once a year so we know who we're giving this money for, what they're doing with it, what their needs are, those type of things. So yeah, I think that's an excellent point.
I think at this point, since we know the direction that you all would like to go on the pay study, Christina and I can go and take those numbers We would then rework the budget with the department heads, and go through those numbers, update our revenue or update the expenses, and get a finalized budget. And then we would need to schedule the big budget discussion with each of the department heads to come in and go through their line items and their requests for the year, towards either the last week of August or the second week of September. So if there's a preference there, so that we kind of have a timeline and know when we should work.
So
If you all's
does everybody want to
schedules-
look at their calendar on? So you said the second week of September?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
That's Labor Day week.
Yes.
So are we thinking that's a half day?
So it would be the second full week in September. So that would
So
be
the
like the 13th
13th.
through the 17th. Yes.
So you thinking that this is a half day event, a full day event?
Historically speaking, it's been a
Yeah.
full day.
Right.
It's been a full day. And if the intent also is to invite those requesting appropriations to come that day and to speak with the council, we would definitely want to allot some time for them to be able to
Correct.
speak.
Obviously.
Yes, sir.
So how are, at least the four of us that are here, how does y'all's week of the 13th look?
My only bad day would be that Thursday the 16th, because I've got to be in Montgomery for that public safety committee meeting that I'm on.
Okay.
So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is good.
Craig? How does,
Monday or Tuesday is my preference.
Yeah, that's mine.
Monday is my preference. Well, let me see. Tuesday. September. So, yeah, Monday or Tuesday. So you're good with Monday. So, actually, Tuesday works best for me. Are you okay with Tuesday?
Tuesday be fine.
Tuesday. You okay
Either
with
one.
Tuesday? So Tuesday the 14th. You got that?
Yeah, I think he's
And the
calling
time?
Sonia. I think
You
he's checking
calling
with
Sonia?
Sonia.
Okay.
Yes, to make sure she's clear.
Tuesday, 9/14/21. So what we'll do is we'll try to start, early and then finish early, so that
I'm good with 8.
yeah, I was thinking 8 a.m.
What?
8 a.m.
I was like 6. Come
or
on.
6. That'd be fine.
I'm-
You
I'm-
bring biscuits.
I'm up at 4:30 every day.
We'll say
So.
8.
I can get up early. I'm up early. 8.
Give everybody a chance to answer some emails, make some phone calls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have some coffee.
And I'll have
Okay,
us
I
out of
think
there by
Sonia's
3.
good. I'm getting the thumbs up from Sonia, so.
That is Tuesday. Tuesday, September 14th.
Okay.
You got that, Beverly? Tuesday, September 14th at 8 a.m. We good? All right. So, Tuesday, September 14th at 8 a.m. All right. That's all I got.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Billy's got something.
I just want to put on record that we keep talking soccer complex, which we know soccer probably be primary, but multi-purpose facility, because we can do more than just soccer on these
Absolutely.
facilities. So I
Exactly.
just want to let y'all know that we did talk about soccer,
Well,
but
when I picture that project in my head, it's a multi-purpose,
Correct.
especially with the trails, the bike, the
Yeah.
disc golf.
That's right. That's right. So there's just more to it than what we just keep saying soccer. So I just
Yeah,
wanna-
I'm glad you brought that up.
It almost feels like a park along the lines of Johnny Henderson Park, just based around soccer instead of baseball.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
That's
apart,
right.
apart.
That's right.
Mhm.
We can do football out there. We
Frisbee.
can do ultimate frisbee. We can on the same
And
fields,
hopefully it'll
kickball.
be, you go there on an afternoon and families are out there walking,
Mhm.
playing with the kids.
That's right. That's right. Playground equipment out there, sand volleyball. We can even set up and do grass volleyball. That's growing.
Splash pad.
Splash. Well,
Talk to the Rotary Club. Talk to the Rotary
that's right.
Dog
That's
park.
right. Anyway, I just want to make that clear
Yeah,
when
thank
we
you for
keep
that
saying.
point.
Thank you.
Does any of the council members have anything to add before we?
No, it's been a great, productive meeting.
Staff, mayor, this meeting's adjourned.
You good, John?
Good. We just.
Lot to absorb.
Oh yeah. We got a lot going on.
We got the ball rolling now.
Yes, sir. Something that'll come up with the next council meeting. I just want to make sure
Well, make sure you go